Yeah, I've been trying to stay hydrated today. Last stream, I got way dehydrated. Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, what's up?
Not too much. Hold on, let me adjust your audio just a little bit there. One moment. Hopefully this will do. Can you give me a quick test?
Yeah, test. How we doing?
All right, perfect. That's perfect. All right, real quick, are you going to be using camera or are you just going to be audio?
Yeah, I could use the camera.
Okay,
Let me get that switched on. Oh, there it is.
All right, perfect. All right, let me get you up here. All right, and what should I put as your username on here and pronouns?
Definitely chainsaw.
Chainsaw?
He, him.
All right, the classics. Fantastic. Welcome, Chainsaw. Welcome to the show. Wonderful
Hey,
to
thanks
have
for
you.
having me.
Looks like we got all your stuff in chat. Very happy to have you. I've seen you in chat a whole bunch. So real quick, do you want to let the chat know what you're all about, what your show's all about, and then we can talk about whatever you'd like.
Yeah. Political streamer, got started in politics. I guess this is the time for the bio, right?
Sure.
So I originally started out in Meet Kevin's community. It was more of a finance related community, right? I guess I'm a lifelong liberal, and then sock dem. Then somewhere around the whole Robin Hood Gate thing, a fuse popped in my brain, and I started becoming a little bit more politically active and a little bit more politically aware than I thought I'd previously been. So I definitely am beyond the level of social democrat these days.
Excellent.
So the show,
always good to hear.
The show originally started out as a finance show. Then, like I say, it covered the Robin Hood Gate. It wasn't a stream, and I don't know. I just got so hyper focused on the disparity and unfairness of the system at that time. It was around the pandemic, and I started in stocks and crypto. Fell for that scheme, and I kind of saw the error of the ways of capitalism, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And since then, I started covering more and more news and spreading out. And honestly, I didn't stream until November, so I had a lot of catching up to do.
Damn. Well, welcome to the streaming community. Then you've been going for almost a little over almost a year now. So yeah, because it's almost July. So damn, that's awesome. But
not very long, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, it's a long time in streaming time. A lot of streams begin and end very quickly. A lot of people get into it and then get right back out because it's not for them. But anyway, well, that's awesome to hear, and it's awesome to hear that you've been sort of expanding your political interest and also like journeying further than sort of the liberal milieu that most of us exist in. Because I do think that's a good thing. I always love to hear people moving beyond their original political assumptions. I mean, obviously, I've had a pretty drastic political transformation over the course of my life because I started being raised in a extremely right-wing Christian cult, and I am not that anymore. So that in and of itself, yeah. So,
I feel.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Go ahead.
No.
Oh, I feel like a lot of you guys who had started in just before the pandemic or slightly before the pandemic, like you mentioned, it's been a drastic change for me. I don't know. It feels like for instance, I felt special when I discovered who Bernie Sanders was in around 2010. It was like that because of his connections with say. Nordic social democracy. That wasn't really something that was being talked about a lot in the U.S. at that time, and it made me feel like I was the guy, And,
I mean, I think that Bernie was an intro to sort of lefty politics, like proper lefty politics, for a lot of people. For me, I was like, I didn't consider myself a leftist. Really, or lefty. I always consider myself progressive was the terms that I used. I was like a progressive environmentalist type for, pretty much since I had left the extreme environment that I grew up in, which was, quite a long time ago now. But when Bernie showed up on the scene, it was certainly an inspiration for myself as well to get more involved. And I got pretty involved with regard, like in with Bernie stuff in 2019 and 2019 really especially. I went to a whole bunch of his rallies and stuff like that, and I was really banging on that drum, and it was I thought it was super inspiring at the time. And then I started streaming in 2020, and I've grown a lot since 2020 personally, and but yeah, I think Bernie was really effective at opening people's minds to what else was possible in politics, and I think that's probably one of his most. It's going to have been one of his most lasting legacies, is the fact that he kind of kicked open the doors to people going, wait, there's something more than just sort of bog standard Bill Clinton Democrat that could be possible, even though we know how it all went, but even still. Yeah,
I feel like it took me a little bit longer to really get there. By comparison to most of the lefty streamers that I listen to, that I follow, most of the folks that I follow on social media. I mean, that could be the illusion of social media, of course. You know, nobody wants to say that at one time they were a little bit more conservative, or not quite as not quite as socially correct as they might be today.
Personally, I think that like being honest about your political history is a good thing. I think that like I don't put value on somebody like having been right forever. Like obviously, I mean, my own life, I would be remarkably hypocritical of me having been grown up in such an extreme right-wing environment where it was something that was. There was no matter of choice in that for me. It was the way that I was raised. It was the family. I was extremely siloed off from the world in a lot of ways, and so I don't know. I think it's okay to be clear about your history and how you got there, and I think that helps us find out how people find their way out of find their way to better views. I don't know. Very few people start as like a lefty in America. Like, at best, people might, grow up in a liberal family with some socially progressive values, but very few people start their path as a lefty. I do think there's some young people who get into it, some younger folks who get into it really early, and that's great for them. And I honestly think that's amazing. And it makes me happy because, like, obviously the environment I grew up in was really toxic for everyone. It's not just like the out group, but the people within who are made to be afraid of the out group are tortured as well. And obviously, I'm trans and gay. Like there was a internal torture going on there as well. But I'm hardly the only one in right wing spaces who was suffering at the time.
Sure.
So, yeah. Anyway.
And your story, or at least what I've heard of it by watching your streams, honestly, is much more common than I think. For myself, growing up in the Midwest, it's much more common than I think most folks, who don't live around that environment and they don't see it firsthand, than they would like to believe.
Unfortunately, there's way more extremist Christianity than people like to believe. Obviously, they're still a minority of the country, which is good. But the extremist fundamentalist stuff, they have enclaves that are very strong. There's a lot of people who are lost in that world, and the reason why I talk about it so openly is with the hope that people who might have been lost in that world, or who might still be somewhat lost in that world, can find, can know they're not alone, and also know that they're not alone in what they struggled with. Because I mean, I've had, even on my videos talking about it, it's been like, the positive feedback on those videos has been remarkable from a lot of people who were in the exact same church, not the same church physical location, but the same church system that I was in. I've received so many comments from people like that have found my story to be valuable or encouraging to them, which makes me happy. Yeah. Oh, oh no, I think we lost you. Oh no. Oh no! I think we're losing some. Oh, you're back. You're back. Sorry, we lost you for a second.
That high budget fiber optics I didn't pay for.
Oh no! I'm sorry about that. Internet. Sometimes nothing you can do about it. I mean, earlier this week we had a 24-hour outage of internet. I'm like, wow, that's sick. Love
I
that.
caught a little bit of Zan's stream the other day whenever I was out on the road, and I remember him saying something about it being a miracle that he was able to stream and he didn't want to push it.
Yeah,
Like,
because it was
I feel
actually
that.
this whole town. Like, me and Zan live relatively close to one another in Seattle, and there was a
Oh,
whole
cool.
chunk of the map that was just completely the internet had been KO'd for basically 24
Oh
hours.
man,
It sucked, absolutely sucked.
bad deal, bad deal. Yeah. So as you were mentioning, though, for me, it's. I mean, I guess I grew up around those folks. I didn't exactly get the fundamentalist, press
Yeah.
on the back of my neck growing up, but I saw it. These are the people I went to school with. These are the people that I go shopping to. The cashiers, da da da. Like,
Yeah.
these are the people in the community, and so folks like yourself pushing that message of being relating to that idea, even for a guy like me, kind of tells me a little bit more. It gives me hope that these folks, either both can be pulled out, but also to keep a watchful eye on community members like that, especially in the idea of converting the cons over to something a little bit more based and regular.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I very much believe that like the average person in these groups is not like without hope. It's a struggle, and it's hard to like directly reach them through the internet, because of just the way that like the way that people get siloed off into consuming media that confirms their biases. However, I just look back at the experience I had and what type of content was valuable to me, and I know that like I just have to hope that people will find their way to stuff like this and find it valuable. And all I and one thing that was also true about in my case was that like once a few of us stepped away from the church, the rest of the family, pretty much almost everybody that I know, ended up as well. Once someone starts to break ranks in that way, it starts to peel back the illusion. And
Right.
and
Well, I don't know anyone
yeah,
who's, I don't know anyone who's queer. I don't know anyone who's gay. I don't know anyone who's trans. I don't know any. Oh, well, I know one person. Well, now
yeah,
I know two people. Well, now I'm going to turn this
exactly.
shit off and act like a normal person who
Yeah, people have to
functions in
reckon with
society.
whether it's like really worth it. Like, is it really worth? Is this community that is telling me that I need to hate my family members really worth it? Am I actually getting what I'm looking for from that? And a lot of
Right.
times the answer is no, but they just never really knew that before. And yeah, so I believe very strongly that there is hope for people to get out of these sort of extremist Christian. They're horrifically manipulative environments to live in. They prey on people's genuine needs, their genuine fears, and I hope that they find other and more healthy communities and also better politics that are more liberating. I strongly believe that like there is an incredible personal liberation that comes from broadening and exploring your politics beyond like what is taught in what is sort of repeated and blasted from everything from stuff like Fox News to down to the churches themselves. These messages, these like things that are taken for granted, where it's just like, oh yeah, stuff like bootstrapping, stuff like super toxic masculinity, these sort of perpetual passive racism that's churned out in these spaces. Learning to challenge that and step away from that to a politics that allows you to look at it differently is a liberating experience that is enriching to individuals, not just better for the world as a whole, although it is obviously much better for the world as a whole.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, how many more Thanksgivings do you really want to ruin, Grandma? I mean, I can't tell you how many hours of Jimmy, Francis, and Donnie Swaggart that I've watched over the last 5 years. But
Yeah.
yeesh.
Yeah.
And it's wildly politically charged, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Shocking. And whenever they have, their speaking panels, you might as well be watching OAN.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
but
remarkable how much they weave right in. Like I've talked about this before. Like the church that my family participated in was they were so unapologetically political that like it's amazing that they get away in our current, legal milieu with being a tax-exempt organization, when half of what they talk about in their sermons is politics. They'll tell people exactly how to vote, and it's like, oh, okay, so apparently this is supposed to be non-political? Bullshit. Fucking bullshit.
No, absolutely.
Yep.
So, to move on, you asked a little bit about what it is that I'm doing now. So for
absolutely.
the audience, of course, I'm doing politics, as you could probably tell, a little bit politically minded, somewhat.
Yeah.
Also do a little bit of gaming streams. I also did want to mention I'm very, very, very small channel, right? Like, I've been doing this for a while, but it's change of format, and then of course I don't stream as regularly as I probably should. So that runs into issues with, I think that even the small audience that I do currently have has been super cool, super chill. A lot of them are people that I've gone out, canvassing with. So I guess that's another thing. So I earlier this year had streamed a lot of the anti-trans hearings that happened here in Missouri. So if you've been watching like MSNBC, when who was it? We call him St. Pete around here, but Peter Meredith, was speaking with Mike Moon, the guy who is encouraging 12-year-old marriages and whatnot.
Deranged.
You streamed that as it was happening live, which kind of really helped whenever I was still building that community, that streaming community on Twitch. And then, of course, actually knowing the people, because I'd canvassed with a lot of these candidates before. Last year, myself and a few others were responsible for, a lot of the political swag that you would see for local candidates. We had more, we had more women running for local state offices, state reps, state senate, last year in 2022 than, and I guess across the country, that had ever happened before. It was unfathomable. Now, of course, these seats were mostly uncontested, which is a huge, huge issue. That I try to bring to light, because I don't think that people really consider that when they talk about voting. They think of, I ended up with a bunch of pushback from a certain crowd on the left on Twitter, which is why I'm assuming you're looking to bring creators on to find mutually minded folks, is because we end up with that sort of toxic discourse. When I mentioned voting in state elections, because we have so many uncontested seats, and those uncontested seats get won by Republicans who end up sponsoring anti-trans bills, who end up getting signed into law at the state level by Republican governors.
Yep.
And, the pushback, of course, is Biden and establishment Democrats. I'm like, bro, do any red states that you either live in or adjacent to, do their state parties? I just got a follow. Thank you for something. Do their state parties actually give a shit about the candidates who are running, or are those candidates doing it themselves?
Yeah.
This is, I think if more people were more politically active, more politically engaged, that's why I'm always advocating your county has a local state party, go to the meetings. Your local candidates, if you don't have any candidates, wait until, it's time for the primaries. Get in touch, follow them on social media, get on Facebook, find out who's running, get on Twitter, find out who's running, make friends with them, offer to volunteer to canvass for them, get involved. That will have a massive impact on some of this bad legislation we've seen over the last, 6 months or so. Huge impact.
I've been for a long time, I've always told people, like, local politics is an avenue to actually being able to change your environment. And I've often tried to tell people, like, there is way too much fixation on federal politics because it's, first of all, it gets lots of coverage. But it's also where there's a ton of money. So of course there's going to be a ton of eyes on it, but the local politics it goes up from the local. You can't completely ignore federal politics, obviously. There's obviously really important things that happen there, but people completely and utterly ignore their local politics, and like you've said, don't even know that there are uncontested seats that are just being scooped up, not by default, not because of any sort of democratic function, but instead just because of default, and that's
it's okay, demonmama. You could say lethargy.
Yeah, I mean that's a part of it too. I have plenty of critiques of electoralism. I have plenty of critiques of over-fixating on electoral politics to the detriment of addressing the needs of living people who are right then and there. I have a lot of critiques of party politics, but those critiques do not extend to completely ignoring your local elections when you could make the world a better place by making strategic votes, by getting involved with using your talents to impact the world in a positive way, or just to knock out somebody worse.
Right. Well, as you say, critiques on electoralism. I mean, at the federal level, what exactly are we supposed to do? What exactly can we do?
Right.
At the very most, we're looking to take funds and resources. This is something I just mentioned on another person's stream earlier today. Sage Alexive, one of the homies. Whatever you at the very least, the candidates lose. You're taking resources away from either the state parties or the federal parties, so that's still a win-win. But whenever it comes to your state, your county commissioners, I mean, you can reach out and touch these people. You know, they're having meetings at the local bar. 4, 5, 6 of them, going up to speak to a crowd of 20, 200, whatever. You can go up, you can take a picture, you can get in their ear. It's totally possible. But I think a lot of people. They get focused, as you mentioned, on the federal election and the futility of it. Yeah. We have these options right here, and these are the ones that are actually affecting people across the country. I mean, we wouldn't be able to talk about Florida if it weren't just in Florida,
Right. Exactly. And also, like, I mean, I always talk about how, like, the fascistic machine takes a lot of energy to propel. So any way that you can deflate that, any way you can gum up the works and slow them down, it means that the chance that they will be able to enact their world vision goes way down. All you have to do is knock this wind out of the sails of these idiots, and they can't get the energy up to make their nightmare world happen. And so I agree with you. I think it's super important. I mean, an example of this that I've talked about on my stream before is my home state of Maine. They have ranked choice voting in that state now. And that was basically the result of one local politician who got completely and utterly screwed. It was a horrible mess of some last minute donor swapping, and people, the establishment candidate basically instilled a ton of fear in his donors. They backed out at the last minute, went over to the other side, and then he just devoted his life to saying, this is fucking bullshit and we all know it. And now Maine is one of the few states in the country that has ranked choice voting, a significantly more just voting system than that has made a huge difference, because people can actually take risks on candidates that aren't just establishment Republican or establishment Democrat. Makes a big difference to the state, and the state has continually become more and more progressive ever since the ranked choice passed. It has been a arc of continued progressiveness as far as policies, to the point that it is now considered a very trans-positive state even, which is awesome.
And that's something that with regard to ranked choice voting, that's something that I think that a lot of people who call themselves leftists, a variety of the spectrum, could get behind, because it does still end up pushing that binary politic, but it opens up the opportunity for a third party, but still the problem remains. You gotta put your money where your mouth is. You gotta show up. You gotta come. You gotta get the work out there.
I think people should understand that there are many ways to get politically involved, and getting politically involved in a local election that is better than not getting involved at all. Getting involved is going to meet you. It's going to introduce you to other people. You're going to make connections. You are going to be building a community. You're going to be making friends and allies that will allow you to do other things. Even if you are a super lefty and you're not super passionate about electoral politics, that can be a way that you can start building a network of people who care about stuff that is shared. You can do good. Right. You can make progress while making connections with people. And who knows, depending on what you're focusing on, you might actually set the stage for further actual lefty change that matters. So, You don't be convinced by a bunch of burnout doomer tankies on the internet that there's no point in engaging in any type of don't be convinced that there's no reason to participate in any of this. Yes, there are issues. No, you are not going to vote your way into a communist utopia, obviously. However, you can make the world a better place, and I advocate a very strategic focus, especially when the stakes are as high as they are right now.
When communist utopia, maybe not, but hey, in 15 years we could all have teeth.
Yeah,
that's a win.
Wouldn't that be nice?
That's a win.
Wouldn't that be incredible?
Hey. Well, I made the mistake of reading your chat, so I know you got a limited amount of time. I did want to ask super quick. So you mentioned part of the reason that you're hosting this is because being creators, have a little bit of trouble, especially new creators on Twitch, on YouTube, finding others in the community, other people to connect to. I actually struggled with this quite a lot myself. I accidentally, and I'm sure this is every small streamer's similar story. I had come across, I think you first, okay. Through one of the homies, Justin Freakin, and that was whenever I discovered all of, maybe not all of, but a lot of the White Forest, communities. I noticed that some of the people in the chat were also streamers. And I started connecting with some of them. So before you let me go, because I assume that's where we're headed.
I got it. We have a couple others, but please. Is
it cool if I shout out the homies?
Absolutely. Please do. Please shout them out.
All right. So shouting out Beer Bash Johnson. That's spelled with 2 3s. Boy Meets Minnie. That's just Boy Meets Minnie. Justin Freakin, who's actually the one who introduced me to you, which I freaking love the guy. Greg Craft, of course, has been a super homie. And last but not least, I did want to include Naomi Chance, who I guess I did not even know this, came from Gay Fesh's community, but I didn't know was a tipster mod.
Oh my God.
And asked me to shout out the Twitter. So NC_2 on Twitter. Definitely give the follow.
Amazing. Yeah, I know all of these people from my community. So this is awesome, and it's been super chill talking with you. It's been great.
Hey, thanks very much.
Sorry that we have limited time, and I've been all over the place, and I ran late sometimes, and it's just how it goes. But we're trying to get better at it. So I'm really glad.
I'll take what I can get. So you can find me at chainsawccc.com. I converted it into a streaming website. It's kind of similar to Demon Mama's, except with more duct tape. It's actually where I've been watching your stream today, is because I'm hosting your stream, and I did steal your chat, but I'll return it once we're done here.
That's fine.
I didn't even know I could do that, so that's pretty cool. But I do, of course, host. Like I say, it's like yours, but with duct tape. I stream on YouTube on Chainsaw Tuesdays, and then Twitch Thursdays, because creativity, man. I can't come up with all these names.
No. Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. Anyway, that sounds awesome. Thank you for shouting out. Thank you for coming on. It was a great conversation.
Thanks for having me.
We'll talk in the future.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye for now. All right. All right. What an awesome conversation. That was really cool. Guys, truly though, don't ever let yourself, don't let doomer weirdos burn you out completely on politics. Yes, politics is annoying. Yes, there is a whole lot of time wasting that goes on with the mainstream Democratic Party, but you can make wins that improve the world. I am all about doing whatever you can to make the world a better place, okay? Seriously, I really think that's important.